Triple bag alert, triple bag alert, triple bag alert, folks. That's right. We got a loaded episode full of twists and turns, hot takes, truth bombs, and more, all right? Kyren Williams, Kaleb McGary, Sieler all get paid. Heyward is now in a hold-in looking for more money. Teddy Bridgewater finally speaks out. Keenan Allen heads back to the Chargers. The Eagles and Raiders make a trade. And my first version of team rankings, all right? All of this and more on the 89th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, all right? I am your host with the most. I'm your chief Barrel Diamonds. That's right, chief, head of the table, anything and everything related to the bag, rumors to the bag, and more. But most importantly, I'm your GM who currently is not on the team right now. But don't you worry about it, all right? Don't you worry about it, because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. You already know how these things are about to go. Buckle up, it's going to get crazy. So guess what? On 3, 1, 2, 3, let's lock in. All right, folks, let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, before we get into the hot stuff, let's talk about these bag alerts, all right? So, Kyren Williams, running back for the Rams, inks a 3-year, $33 million deal, $23 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $11 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 316 attempts for 1,299 rushing yards, 4.1 rushing yards per carry, 14 rushing touchdowns, and 27 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Folks, this is a good deal for a really productive player. You are talking about somebody that has been very productive in this Rams offense. You're talking about somebody who's had back-to-back years of double-digit rushing touchdowns. And not to mention, this deal makes him the 7th or 8th highest paid running back in the league, which still is not bad at all. It's a short-term deal. So by the time this deal is over with, he'll still be in his prime and he can still get at least maybe 10 or 11, maybe even 12 million. But with this deal, we have to talk about James Cook because he's also looking for money as well. James Cook right now is in a holding with the Bills. Of course, he said multiple things that he wants to get paid, X number amount of dollars and whatnot. Me personally, if I'm the Bills, I'm not paying him well over $8 million. I'm just going to be completely honest here. Because when we look at his stats from the last few years since coming into the league, last year was his best year. I'll be honest. 207 attempts for 1,009 rushing yards, 4.9 rushing yards per carry, and 16 touchdowns. But the 2 years prior to that, he only had 2 touchdowns in both of those years. Now, granted, you've had back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons, but that's not enough for me as a GM to say, you know what? We'll give you 12 or 13 or 14 million a year. I'm sorry. I'm just not doing that. I need to see consistency because for all intents and purposes, you could have had one good year and then they pay you X amount of dollars. And then the next thing you know, you just fall off and you don't want that. Now, if I'm James Cook, personally, I would rather take either a 1-year, $8.5 million deal or a 2-year, $10 million deal, something short term. So that way, guess what? By the time that deal is over with, you can go somewhere else, re-up, get more money, maybe even a longer term deal than what you will probably get with the Bills. Because mind you, the Bills have paid a lot of their players. You already know that Josh Allen was going to get a majority of that money, especially with him winning the MVP. Gregory Rousseau didn't get paid a whole lot of money. None of the players on this paid this offseason made a whole lot of money outside of Josh Allen. So what gives you the right to say, you know what? I want 15. I want 20. I want whatever the number was that he said on his IG Live. No. Even when you compare the two, yes, both of them have had back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons. But Kyren Williams, as I just said recently, he's had back-to-back double-digit rushing touchdown seasons. You haven't, James Cook. The stats don't lie. But let's keep things going, though. So let's talk about, there it is. Sieler, defensive tackle for the Dolphins, inks a 3-year, $67.7 million deal, $44 million guaranteed, and he'll be making $22.5 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 55 tackles, 10 sacks, and 1 pick. Folks, this is a really good deal for a really productive player for the Dolphins. You are talking about somebody that post Christian Wilkins, he's still an effective defensive lineman. And there were a lot of people that were asking the question, hey, is his success coming from Christian Wilkins? Is it coming from the system? Is it coming from coaching? What exactly is causing Zach Sieler to be successful? And he's proven it. It's just him. And that's great. Folks, let's be real here. And Dolphin fans, you can back me up with this. Better yet, I want you guys to comment under the YouTube Football Junkies pod if I'm right or wrong about this. Because you know exactly what I'm getting ready to say. The running notion with the Dolphins for the last few years is they take care of players that are coming from other teams better than players who are homegrown. And I think that mindset is now starting to be changed a little bit because you're taking care of someone in Zach Sieler. It's a good thing because you're destroying that stigma, but at the same time, this is just one player. You need to continue to do this with the rest of your players. But here's the crazy thing, though. And I didn't even know this until Adam Schefter said this. Zach Sieler was a part of the 2018 draft class for the Ravens. And within that draft class, that class has now generated more money in future contracts than any draft class in NFL history. Hayden Hurst, $7.2 million. Lamar Jackson, $52 million. Orlando Brown, $16 million. Mark Andrews, $14 million. Anthony Heyward, $4 million. Deshaun Elliott, $6.2 million. Bradley Bozeman, $6 million. Zach Sieler, $22 million. Darius Williams, $10 million. And Gus Edwards, $5 million. And that was Ozzie Newsome's last draft class, if I'm not mistaken. Folks, Ozzie Newsome doesn't get the flowers that he so deserves. I would venture to say, and I will die on this hill, Ozzie Newsome is the greatest GM in NFL history. You are talking about somebody that has been very effective when it comes to drafting. Let me just name to you some of the people that he's drafted over his tenure as GM for the Ravens. Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden, Ryan Jensen, Ed Reed, Marshall Yonda, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, Adalius Thomas, Joe Flacco, Jamal Lewis, Ray Rice, Chris McAllister, Todd Heap, Peter Boulware, CJ Mosley, Lamar Jackson, Brandon Williams, Ladarius Webb, Ben Grubbs, Jimmy Smith, Torrey Smith, Ronnie Stanley, Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, Kyle Juszczyk, and Michael Orr, just to name a few. And not all of these were first-round picks. Some of these were later picks. And so the fact that you have somebody whose effect is still being felt just shows you of how great of a GM that he is. I feel like as a GM, for any GM, Ozzie Newsome should be the gold standard of what you should do as a GM when it comes to effective drafting, handling contracts, the whole 9 yards. But this just goes to show that the Ravens continue to solidify themselves as one of the better teams when it comes to drafting, because you know why? They not only just hit on their first round picks, they also hit on their second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and even seventh round picks. If a lot of these teams, like the Cardinals, Panthers, Jaguars, if they had someone like an Ozzie Newsome, they will be in such a better direction than where they are right now. But we're not going to continue to talk about the Ravens, okay? So let's just keep this thing going. So Kaleb McGary, right tackle for the Falcons, inks a 2-year, $30 million deal, and he'll be making $15 million a year. When we look at his stats from this past season, 32 total pressures and 10 hits. Not a bad deal, not a groundbreaking deal, just taking care of somebody that plays a really effective role on this offensive line. An offensive line, by the way, that has gotten a lot of money. From Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, their center who they just signed this offseason as well. I know I talked about him in one of the previous episodes. To now Kaleb McGary. They're taking care of this offensive line. This offensive line doesn't get the flowers that it deserves, but it is definitely a top 5, maybe top 10 offensive line in my mind. But, I can be wrong. Again, this isn't a deal that's going to break the bank. This isn't a deal that's going to have the Falcons, figuring out, do we need to restructure down the road, or do we need to make anything, any crazy moves or whatever. No, it's a really good team-friendly deal, okay? Now let's talk about something that's a little bit more pressing, okay? And this may turn into a rant. So Cam Heyward is now in a hold-in, okay? And Basically, he's looking for more money. It's a lot. So let me just read to you what's happened so far, and then we'll get into the hot takes and whatnot. So before he announced his hold-in, Cam Heyward posted this on his IG story. And I quote, "When you take things for granted, the things you are granted get taken." End quote. Now he has 2 years remaining on his current deal, and he's supposed to be making $14.7 million this season. But of that $14.7 million, $13.4 million of that money has already been paid out in a roster bonus. Cameron Heyward is currently the 36th highest paid defensive lineman and the 18th highest paid defensive tackle in the league right now. The team and Heyward have addressed this behind closed doors, but no progress has been made. Cam Heyward is the first defensive lineman to receive an All-Pro over 35 years old since Bruce Smith did it in 1998. Now, when we look at his stats from this past season, he had 71 tackles, 8 sacks, 41 quarterback pressures. While I understand that he's looking for more money, you did this at the wrong time, and let me explain why. If you weren't happy with how your contract was, you should have tried to address this in OTAs, in minicamp, earlier on into the off-season program. Instead of waiting this long and just saying, you know what, I'm not happy, I'm not going to work out with the team no more, I'm just going to do a hold-in. This is the wrong time to do it because you're bringing negative attention to this team. The team prioritized not bringing any negative attention going into training camp. That's why they took care of TJ Watt as quickly as they did, because they didn't want that lingering into training camp. But now that you have this going on, everyone's going to be asking the same thing. How much does Cam want? Is he looking for this amount of money? Is he looking for a contract that's similar to this person or that person? This is a nasty tactic because you used your agent to go to Adam Schefter to put out this story. And that's not right. You knew prior to signing this deal that this deal, technically speaking, was not going to give you the guaranteed money that you were looking for. It wasn't a 3-year deal. It was technically a 2-year deal when you actually look at the contract. And even when you look at the base salary, his base salary is only 1.5 for the next 2 years. So I don't understand why you would try to sign that deal. If I'm Cam Heyward, I would have just hit free agency. Then to just say, you know what? Everything is fine, and you give this impression to the fans and whatnot that you're focused on football, when in actuality, you're actually pissed off because you didn't get a deal. That's ludicrous. As much of a team leader as you are, as much as somebody that was complaining about Aaron Rodgers not making his decision on if he wanted to be a Pittsburgh Steelers or not, it makes you look like a hypocrite. Because now that Aaron Rodgers is here, now you have a problem with your contract, and now you want resolution. I'm sorry. If I'm the Steelers, I'm not giving you a whole bunch of money. There are ways that you can address this as a professional. What you're doing right now is what someone like a CeeDee Lamb would do, or Jamar Chase would do. Somebody that's in their late 20s. Not someone that's 36 years old. If you're not happy with the contract, and if the team is not willing to adjust your contract in some way, play out the season, and when this season is over, request a trade. Because it's starting to get to a point where, okay, are we going to overpay you and it's going to backfire on us if anything crazy happens? Or are we just going to let you play out this deal? Me personally, I'm letting you play out this deal. I understand you just got an All-Pro last season. That's great. But paying a player at this point in their career has more risk than gain. So you have to be very cautious about that, because if you don't, you'll give them a 4-year deal worth I don't know how much, and they become, what, the 5th or 4th highest paid defensive tackle in the league? And then guess what? 2 years out of that deal, he's not playing his best ball. Or he just flat out retires. Then what? Then you have a whole bunch of dead cap that's going to be carrying you for the remainder of the contract. And you don't want that. Even when we look at some of the highest paid defensive tackles, okay? Chris Jones, 31.7. Nnamdi Metabuke, 24.5. Aleem McNeil, 24.2. Derek Brown, 24. Kyren Williams, 24. Jeffrey Simmons, 23.5. DeForest Buckner, 23. Daron Payne, 22.5. Dexter Lawrence, 21.8. Kenny Clark, 21.3. So where exactly would you want Cameron Heyward to fit in between any of those players? Where would you want that? Do you want him making more money than DeForest Buckner? Do you want him making more money than Derek Brown? Do you want him making more money than Chris Jones? Because I thought that we're supposed to be focused about winning and trying to win a championship and trying to win a playoff game. Not trying to figure out if you're going to get more money than the next person. That's the problem that I have with this. If you are not happy with your contractual situation, then you need to go to Omar Khan and you need to have a conversation with him and say, hey, listen, is there a way that we can tack on some more guaranteed money? Because I don't have any more guaranteed money. And everybody knows when you don't have any more guaranteed money, you put yourself at risk, because guess what? The guaranteed money is the safety blanket for you. Here's the thing, folks. We're going to class for a second. Quick 30-second class session, okay? Anytime a player gets a new deal, right? Don't look at the big number. Look at the guaranteed number. That's the money that they're guaranteed. Whether they're hurt, whether they get traded, whatever. That's the money that they are guaranteed to be getting, okay? So, for instance, Zach Sieler, for instance, right? Let's use his deal, okay? So Zach Sieler got a 3-year, $67.75 million deal, right? Of that $67.7 million, he's only getting $44 million of that guaranteed. So there's still at least, 15 to maybe 20-ish million that isn't guaranteed. That's probably either fake money tied into bonuses, incentives, or, just something crazy just to spruce up the numbers, okay? I want you to remember that. Anytime somebody gets a crazy deal, always remember to look at the guarantees. Don't look at the bigger number, okay? Now, when we look at Chris Boswell, because he's also not happy with his current situation, because he's looking for more money as well, he's taking it in a more professional route because he's been quiet with this. Now, granted, he's frustrated. He's very frustrated, but he's trying to take things in a more professional route. Because even then, Chris Boswell, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's like the 11th highest paid kicker right now. And the market has jumped in this offseason. Just a little bit, right? When we look at Chris Boswell's stats from this past season, he had a 93.2 field goal percentage. He was 9 for 9 between the 20 and 29 yard line, 12 for 12 between the 30 and 39 yard line, 7 for 8 between the 40 and 49 yard line. He was 13 for 15 from 50 yards or more. He was 35 extra point attempts for 35 extra points made. He was one of the better kickers last year. So it's only right that you pay him. Not to mention that market isn't high. If you wanted to, you could make him the third, the fourth, or maybe even the highest paid kicker in the entire league. According to SpotRack, his market value is 4 years, $24.4 million, which is $6.1 million a year. That's not bad. That would make him the second highest paid kicker in NFL history. You have to take care of him because he's literally been your best kicker, I would say, of all time, minus Gary Anderson, which I think he'll probably break Gary Anderson's record fairly soon, probably within the next 2 or 3 years. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about records. We're talking about money, okay? If you're Omar Khan, do you find a way to take care of these deals? Or do you at least take care of Chris Boswell and you let Cam Heyward just play out this season and you just see how things are going to go? Me personally, I would take that route because at least with Chris Boswell, you need a Chris Boswell, okay? And I understand it's going to be very controversial. I understand people are probably going to misuse my words and whatnot. Really don't care. Cam Heyward at this point in his career is more risk than gain, okay? If you're Omar Khan, you're not going to give him this crazy deal. You're going to give him something that's very team friendly and something that's easy to get out of if for whatever reason he has a serious injury, he decides that he wants to retire or whatever the case may be. Compared to giving him this super crazy deal and he doesn't live up to the contract. But what do I know, right? I don't know anything. But let's keep on going, all right? So, Teddy Bridgewater finally speaks out with everything that's happened so far. So, for those of you who don't know, Teddy Bridgewater was suspended from Miami Northwestern High School for allegedly providing benefits to players, as they say, okay? And this comes from Jenna Lane of ESPN. So, he led the school to the Class 3A state championship in his first season in 2024. He paid $14,000 for a camp that gave players, and I quote, 3 hot meals a day from local black-owned restaurants, and a snack on some of those days, end quote. $9,500 for matching clothes, $300 a week to repaint the field, $1,300 a week for recovery trucks, $2,200 for the team's pregame meals, $700 a week for Uber rides. Now, this is what Teddy Bridgewater had to say, and I quote, "Miami Northwestern is in a tough neighborhood. Sometimes things can happen when kids are walking home. I was just trying to protect them," end quote. But he also goes on to say this, and I quote, "I'm protective, and I am a father first before anything. Those players became my sons," end quote. Here's the last one that's really going to pull on your heartstrings, and I quote, "I can't change who I am because of the rules. I have a big heart. I get it from my mom. I was once those kids. I know what it's like to be in their shoes. I know what it's like to walk those halls in Northwestern and to have your stomach growling and rumbling at 12 o'clock in the afternoon because you didn't have any lunch money or you didn't get the free lunch. So I can't change who I am," end quote. Now here's the thing. According to high school data from the U.S. News and World Report, 75% of these students are considered economically disadvantaged, with 72% of them qualifying for free lunch under the National School Lunch Act. Here's the problem that I have, okay? It'll be one thing if Teddy Bridgewater was recruiting some of the best kids from other counties in order to play for Miami Northwestern. Okay, fine. You're in trouble. You can't do that. But what he's doing is what's something that the school board and the athletic department is supposed to be doing. But clearly, they do not have the financial means to do it. So what is he doing? He's stepping in the middle and trying to resolve this. And people were up in arms about him doing this. See, if you don't have anybody that lives on the bad side of town, if you don't have an aunt or uncle or some family members or some cousins that live in the ghetto, this story ain't for you because you don't care about this story, okay? But if you got some folks that live on that bad side, you know exactly what he's doing. He's doing the right thing that needs to be done. The same thing that everybody talks about, well, players don't give back to their communities and all they do is just hog up all their money and they don't even make an appearance. Teddy Bridgewater is doing that. In the moment that he does it, people have an attitude about it. For what? The report just said that 75% of these students are considered economically disadvantaged. That means a majority of these kids, when they go home, some of them will not have any food, and a majority of them will go to bed hungry. But y'all don't think about that. Y'all don't think about the things that they need to receive post games, post practices. Ben Gay and ice isn't going to resolve sore knees and a sore back and messed up fingers. Sometimes you're going to need something a little bit more. And Teddy Bridgewater was trying to do that. Teddy Bridgewater was trying to show them that, listen, there is another way than just getting into the streets, getting into trouble, doing things you're not supposed to be doing. That's what Teddy Bridgewater is trying to do. Teddy Bridgewater is trying to save these kids from getting into the streets. And you have a school board, an athletic board, and whoever else that decided to make this decision to say, you know what, we're going to suspend you. For what? This is money out of his own pocket. He's not getting paid by somebody else to do this. This isn't a shadowy figure in the background that's doing this. No. This is someone who is productive, who doesn't have no controversy to his name, who's always been an upstanding person. And the fact that you would do something like this, the fact that you would suspend somebody who all he's trying to do is trying to sow seeds of positivity and sow seeds of just saying, you know what, there's hope for you. I understand you live in a bad neighborhood. I understand your situation. I once was in your situation. But you know what? There's a way out. And it doesn't have to do with drugs. It doesn't have to do with towing the peace. It doesn't have to do with carjacking or whatever. That's the problem that I have with this. If you've never experienced tough times, if you've never been in tough situations, you wouldn't know anything about this. You probably shouldn't care about this. And if I were you, I would skip this part and I would get to the other parts of this episode. But for the people that know, for the people that actually experience some tough times and you need some help. Teddy Bridgewater was showing help. Would you rather for somebody that's a former player that doesn't have no crap to his name come back into the community and help out, or would you rather want the local drug dealer to be giving them a piece in the 8-ball? What would you want? You probably would want the drug dealer to give them a piece in the 8-ball so you can see them get locked up. I'm sorry, folks, but it makes my blood boil when you have people who complain that these athletes don't do enough for their communities. But you have someone like Teddy Bridgewater that's so outgoing with his community, and he gets suspended for it because people are saying it's not fair. Well, boo-hoo. Life is not fair. For any of the schools, for any of the parents of the other schools that caught attitudes about this, you know what you guys need to do? You guys need to come together, start doing chicken dinners, fish dinners, car washes, bingo night. You can do a softball game. You can do a basketball game. You can do a variety of different things to raise some money. Or you guys can put your money together and figure this thing out. If you get 5 or 6 parents to come together, okay, how much you got? You got 25? Okay, that's fine. We'll take your 25. Okay, how much you got? You got 100? Okay, that's fine. Okay, you got 150? Okay, that's fine. If everybody puts a little bit of money in the pot, you can get something done. But you know what you can't do? You can't just complain, because that's exactly what happened. Complain to the board and say, you know what? Yeah, we don't really like this. This isn't fair. This isn't fair to all the other players. Well, then, you know what you need to do? You need to find out who's the most famous alumni within those other schools, reach out to them and their team, and say, you know what? We need assistance with X, Y, and Z. We need new equipment. We need our field to be repainted or returfed. We need better gym equipment. We need better recovery equipment. That's what you do. Instead of just taking this route of, oh, we're just going to complain. We don't like what he's doing. So what? He's actually trying to create change. If you've never gone to a restaurant that you normally don't go to and you just experience it one time, it'll change your thinking. It'll make you say, you know what? There's more to life than what I'm surrounded with. If you have some family members in the hood, right? And you say, you know what? Let's go to this famous steakhouse on me. Put on your best clothes, mind your manners, of course. And you know what? We're going to go to the steakhouse. They're going to experience something that's going to change their life. Now, are there going to be some people that are still going to continue to do the wrong things? Yes. And by them doing that, they have accepted the terms and conditions that they are going to face the consequences. But for the people positively changed from this, it's going to make them want to chase that. It's going to make them want to experience that even more. If you've never been to Disney World, but you go to Disney World 2 or 3 times, you'll always want to go to Disney World. Because why? You want to experience that ambiance. You want to experience that environment. You want to experience the smells, the taste of the food, the scenery, the fireworks, all of those things. But you got people that want to complain because you have someone in Teddy Bridgewater who's taking money out of his pocket. He's not using tax dollar money. He's not using money from the school board. He's not using money from the athletic department. He's using his own hard-earned money that he earned from playing in the National Football League. You paid $14,000 for a camp that gave players 3 hot meals a day. A day. So if you break down that $14,000, I don't know, a week or so, it's a lot of money. Then you're repainting the field every week over a period of time. That's a lot of money. $13,000 a week for recovery trucks, $2,200 for pregame meals, $700 a week for Uber rides. I guarantee you, if you ask any of these kids that's on this football team, half of them will say, my folks don't have a car, we barely have any food in the house, or we just don't got it at all. And those families probably appreciated Teddy Bridgewater for doing this, but y'all just ran him away. Sad. It's sad. It's very sad. It's very heartbreaking, but hopefully, prayerfully, Teddy Bridgewater can still support them in some capacity. What capacity, I don't know. But let's just keep this thing going, okay? So Keenan Allen decides that he is going back to the Chargers. So Keenan Allen inks a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. When we look at his stats from this past season, 121 targets for 70 receptions, 744 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10.6 receiving yards per reception. Although I feel like it was a little bit of an overpay, I understand why they did it. Because right now they needed a veteran presence in that receiver room. Let me just read to you the receivers that they have right now. Lab McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Trey Harris, Darius Davis, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Des Fitzpatrick, Jalen Johnson, Jaquay Jackson, Jalen Reagor, Braden Rice, and Luke Grimm. So out of all those receivers, most likely it's going to be Keenan Allen, Lab McConkey, Trey Harris, Jalen Reagor. I would say Keandre Lambert-Smith will probably be in there. Brandon Rice, you can probably throw them in there. So they have a young receiver core. But I think adding a veteran presence will definitely help them in the long run, because you're going to have somebody that's done it, and you have somebody that played at a very high level that can show them, hey, this is what I do when I'm running this route. Hey, this is what I do when I'm facing this type of corner, or this is what I do when I'm facing this type of defense. That's what you need. Not to mention, this is a consistent weapon for Justin Herbert right now, because outside of Keenan Allen, Lab McConkey, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Jalen Reagor, and Brandon Rice are probably the only receivers that he actually has chemistry with. Quentin Johnson, me personally, I don't know what's going on with him, but I feel like he's fallen out of the good graces of the Chargers right now, because he just can't hold on to the ball. Why, I don't know. He has all the talent in the world, but he just can't hold on to the ball. But right now, I feel like this is a better offense with Keenan Allen than without him. I mean, even when you look at his stats from this past season, he was still really good. 7 touchdowns? That's not bad. The only reason why that he left the Chargers was for a financial reason. It wasn't because of his play. It was just because he had a high salary cap and a crazy contract, and it's just like, hey, we're trying to go in a different direction. They asked him if he wanted to take a pay cut, and he didn't want to do it at first. So then once he left the Bears, he was probably like, I probably should have taken that pay cut. I want to go back home. And that's what he did. He went back home. So all in all, I feel like it's a really good situation for the Chargers. Do I think this boosts them up a little bit more? Only time will tell. But since we are talking about teams, let's get into team rankings. Actually, you know what? No, let's hold off of that. We need to talk about this trade very quickly, and then we'll get into these rankings, because I know this is going to be the part that everybody's going to talk about. All right, so let's just do it. So the Eagles and Raiders made a quick trade. So the Eagles will receive Jacorian Bennett, corner, while the Raiders will receive Thomas Booker, the fourth, defensive tackle. So all in all, I think this is a pretty good trade for both sides. I mean, it'll probably give both players a better situation to possibly compete and get on the main roster. We all know that the Raiders are trying to bolster up their defensive line depth, especially with the departure of Christian Wilkins. And we all know that the Eagles are trying to bolster up their cornerback room, because outside of Quinyon Mitchell, who else do they have? No disrespect to anybody else. Just saying, Eagle fans. Don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. But since we're talking about the Eagles, let's get into these team rankings. But before we do that, we got to pay some bills. Pardon the interruption, but this is your GM, your Bag Road Dominus, here to talk about RSS.com, all right? So if you guys already don't know, I am a RSS.com affiliate, and so I just want to tell you for just a quick moment about why you should choose RSS.com. So me personally, on my journey of podcasting, I was looking at different platforms just to find the right place. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked everywhere, but I checked out RSS.com, and it was the best decision I ever made. From low prices to interactive analytics to as well as helping you with your distribution. RSS.com does it all. Not to mention, they just started a Slack channel where you can network and interact with other podcasters and even get some insightful tips on how you can increase your podcast even more. So head on over to RSS.com. I will be attaching my RSS affiliate link within the description. When you click on that link, I will be able to receive some compensation for it. And with that compensation, I will be able to give you guys a better product. A lot of that money will go towards upgrading the microphones, computers, new subscriptions for more analytical information that we can use for future podcasts, all of that and more. Thank you for your support, and thank you RSS.com for making me an affiliate. Now back to the good stuff. All right, folks, the moment that we all have been waiting for is finally here. My team rankings. Okay, so let's start this. All right, this is assigned seats. All right, everybody has their assigned seats. You know where you're going to be at. All right, so let's break this thing down. Super Bowl contenders, playoff contenders, pretender contenders, dark horse playoff contenders, and it's not your turn contenders. All right, so let's start with the Super Bowl contenders. We already know who they're going to be, but there's going to be one that's going to blow everyone's mind. So let's just get into it. So Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Buccaneers, and Eagles. Now, for all those people that are probably wondering, why not the 49ers? No, the 49ers have lost more than gained in this offseason. Me personally, with their receiving core being as depleted as they are, unless they make a big move and maybe getting someone like a Terry McLaurin, I just don't see it personally. I'm just going to be completely honest. Between receiver and corner, those are their two weak spots right now. And I just feel like they haven't done enough to properly address it. Granted, I understand Brandon Ayuk will still be able to play this season, but you need him now. And with him not being there, as well as Jawan Jennings, I just don't see it personally. But when we look at the Buccaneers, in my mind, and shout out to Mook and shout out to Shane for helping me with this, the Buccaneers have the best receiving core in the entire league. You have Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, and I forgot who the other receiver is. They literally have a receiving core that each and every one of their receivers will be a starting receiver on any other team in the NFL right now. That's rare. On top of that, Baker Mayfield has been playing his best ball since being with the Buccaneers, and that defense is potent. Now, I will say this. The only weak spots in that defense, to me personally, this is just my personal opinion, is pass rush and corner. And that's why I was saying for the entire time when Jalen Ramsey was trying to find his way out from Miami, the Buccaneers should trade for him, because by doing so, that would have shored up the defense. Because now you're going to have a cornerback room that has Jamel Dean, Benjamin Morrison, Jalen Ramsey, and then you'll have Antoine Winfield Jr. in the back. You have Levante David as the linebacker. Then you'll have Vita Vea, you'll have Kalijah Kancey, you'll have Shaq Barrett, you'll have Hassan Reddick. Like, that's a really good defense. I'm sorry. This is the same team that has whooped, and I mean whooped, the Eagles, Vikings, and all the top NFC contenders. They have all beaten them in the last few years. So yes, in my mind, they are Super Bowl contenders. Now, I will say this. If they go after another top-end pass rusher, if they get someone like a Jadeveon Clowney, if they try to make a big move and go after Micah Parsons, and if they address corner, nobody is stopping this team. I am willing to die on that hill. We already know about the Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Eagles. There's nothing really to say about that. Now, playoff contenders: Commanders, Vikings, Texans, Packers, Chargers, Rams, Lions. Originally, I did have the Lions in the Super Bowl contender, seats. But me personally, with everything that they've gone through this entire offseason, I just don't see it. I'm sorry. When you lose both your offensive and defensive coordinator in one offseason, and then you lose those positional coaches that were under them as well, and all you did was just elevate people instead of trying to at least make one big hire on either the offense or the defense, I'm sorry, that's a problem with me. But let's keep this going, all right? So Texans, I still consider them a playoff contender. Yes, they've tried to at least bolster up the run game a little bit more by adding Nick Chubb. You address the offensive line a little bit. Me personally, I feel like they should have made more additions to the offensive line just to protect C.J. Stroud and to better improve the run game as a whole, because the defense last year was keeping them when they were going up against the Chiefs. It was just the offense that was stagnant. And I've said this before in previous episodes. If that run game was a little bit better and a little bit more consistent, they would have beaten the Chiefs. Because Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter was going after Patrick Mahomes relentlessly. Now, when we look at the Vikings, Packers, Chargers, Rams, Commanders, all of them are playoff contenders, yes. But I feel like, personally, there is a roadblock that's preventing them from being considered a Super Bowl contender. Whether it be a competitive division, a position of need that they still have to address, or they still need to see something within their quarterback, a variety of different things. Now, me personally, with the Vikings, yes, they are playoff contenders. I feel like personally, if J.J. McCarthy played last season and he actually played fairly well, then I would say, okay, you could probably make a strong case that they're Super Bowl contenders. But technically speaking, this is his rookie year. So I want to see where this team is going to be at, because last year they were great. Okay, they were firing on all cylinders. The defense was playing great. The offense was playing great. So I want to see if that momentum is going to carry in this upcoming season. Commanders, they made a lot of moves. They shored up the offensive line. They added in Deebo Samuel. They made additions to the cornerback room. I feel like they're there, but I feel like personally they are missing an elite pass rusher. If they get Micah Parsons, oh yeah, they're a Super Bowl team. Because you're not going to stop Daron Payne, Johnny Newton, Micah Parsons, Frankie Louvu, and Javon Kinlaw. You're just not going to do that. I'm sorry. Okay? And then offensively, we already know what they have. Most likely, they're going to keep Terry McLaurin. You have Deebo Samuel. You have Noah Brown, Zach Ertz. You have the run game intact. I feel like they can make some noise. That's just my personal opinion. Packers. Packers are an underrated playoff team, personally. I feel like they have a lot of pieces in place, and I feel like they can definitely be successful this year. But I think it all depends on Jordan Love, as well as the receiver room. Because they've made a lot of additions to the receiver room. And the receiver room right now is packed. So I want to see, can this receiver room and Jordan Love, can they have some type of connection? Can they be on one accord? Because I feel like if they're on one accord, oh, the Super Bowl is the ceiling for them. I'm just going to be completely honest here. You can hate me all you want, but these are just my opinions, all right? Rams, they are playoff contenders right now. I feel like right now their most dire need is corner. I think if they address corner, we can have a conversation. And we all know what somebody has been tweeting lately, and Aaron Donald, unfortunately. Aaron Donald has said that he would be willing to come out of retirement if the Rams get Micah Parsons. Which, speaking of which, let's talk about that for a second here, folks. If you're the Rams, and if you want to at least go back to the Super Bowl one more time, and if it means that you go back to the Super Bowl with Aaron Donald, I think you make that move for Micah Parsons. You have 2 first-round picks. Your GM said it. Fuck them picks. You trade away those 2 first-round picks. You get Micah Parsons. You give him at least some short term of a deal, maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, and you just go from there. Because everything else is in place. That defensive line will be the greatest defensive line in NFL history. You're going to have Kobe Turner, Brandon Fisk, Jared Verse, Aaron Donald, Micah Parsons. Who's stopping the defensive line? Nobody. And not to mention, by making that move, that means that you necessarily don't have to address corner if you don't want to. So if I'm the Rams, do it. Because most likely the Falcons aren't going to go anywhere this season. So you'll probably have a top 5 pick on top of whatever pick that you're going to have. If you're the Cowboys, you have to take that. Let's really have an honest conversation here. Matthew Stafford's age is starting to show. All of those hits and injuries that he had, they're starting to show. So if you're the Rams, you want to try to maximize this year. Because next year, me personally, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams actually draft a quarterback in the first round next year. But I'll save that when we talk about quarterback prospects and whatnot, right? So contenders, all right? Steelers, Bengals, and 49ers. So with the 49ers, you already know, I've said this before and I'll say this multiple times, I don't trust their offense nor their defense. I feel like if they would have at least made one big move for receiver, then I would have a little bit more confidence in them. And then me personally, I feel like they're too top heavy, right? If Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, God forbid, or Trent Williams or George Kittle, that offense isn't the same. And we all know that offense relies on George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and company. It's the same thing with the defense. The defense lost Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Gravedigger. You lost a lot of really good players. Now, granted, you guys drafted Alfred Collins and CJ West, but you didn't really do anything with the cornerback room, nor in the safety room. So I feel like those are the 2 positions that really need to be addressed. And if they're not addressed leading into the regular season, it's going to be a problem. I understand that you have the easiest schedule, but Don't mistake that as your golden ticket to the Super Bowl, because it's not. But let's keep this thing going. Bengals, I don't trust you a lick. Because outside of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, there is nothing else on this team that you have to be worried about. And even then, you don't have to be as concerned with that core. That defense, it's not reliable. You can't trust it. Especially if Trey Hendrickson isn't playing. Oh, you definitely can't trust it. Because who on that defensive line strikes fear in an offense? It's not B.J. Hill. It's not Miles Murphy. It's not Shamar Stewart. It would be Trey Hendrickson. But clearly the Bengals don't want to pay him, so guess what? There's nothing to fear. Who do you fear in that cornerback room? Nobody. Who do you fear in that linebacker room? Nobody. Who do you fear in that safety room? Nobody. The Bengals will literally be in a shootout for 18 weeks. And out of those 18 weeks, you are going to lose more than win. Steelers, I don't trust you, and here's why. For one, this offense has shown that it is not competitive. And this offense needs to make at least one more major addition in order to at least put a little bit of fear in defenses. If this offense still had George Pickens, I would have no problem. But outside of DK Metcalf, who can you rely on right now? Who is your number 2 outside receiver that you can trust right now? Because right now, from what I've heard, Scotty Miller has been cooking. Roman Wilson really ain't been playing the best. He really ain't been consistent. Calvin Austin, they say he's hurt. Me personally, I don't think he's hurt. I think he's having a hold-in, and they're just not saying it. Because I think he's looking for money. I do not trust this team, not one bit. Granted, you have the defense, and the defense has been playing on all cylinders. But this offense has been getting its ass kicked every single day. If I'm not mistaken, the offense has only won 3 days. The rest of the days, the defense has been kicking their teeth down their throat. That is not a good sign, folks. Not to mention, the offensive line has not been playing well either. And this may turn into a little bit of a rant, but I really don't care. Broderick Jones needs to step up. There is no excuse on why Broderick Jones has not taken that next step to really solidifying his role in this team. You have access to former players and current players that you can reach out to say, hey, what can I do to make my game better? What can I do to take that next step? But you're not willing to do that. I understand that Pat Meyer is not a good offensive line coach, but that doesn't mean that you just use that as a crook on why you're not where you're supposed to be at. And this goes to the Steelers, because once again, you have drafted a position that you didn't need to draft in that specific draft class. Let me explain. Let's go a little bit deeper. You drafted Kenny Pickett in a bad quarterback class. That next year, you had C.J. Stroud and company that was coming out. You should have just waited. You did it again with Broderick Jones. You knew that wasn't a good tackle class. And next year, you had what? Taloise Fuaga. You had Troy Fatanu. You had a whole bunch of really good tackles that were coming out. Paris Campbell, if I'm not mistaken. J.C. Latham. But you decided to take a project in a tackle for what? Anytime you are winning against tier 3 and tier 2 pass rushers, that is a problem. See, it's a difference if you're playing right tackle, but you're playing left tackle. So you're going up against Myles Garrett twice. You're going up against some of the better pass rushers on that left side. And if you don't protect that side, Aaron Rodgers is going to dig in your ass. If you don't believe me, ask Mike Williams, because he did it. So if you're Broderick Jones, you need to step up. You need to solidify yourself on this team, because if you don't, guess what's going to happen? Next year, they're going to draft your replacement. Sure, you're winning against Nick Herbert. Who cares? I want to see what you can do against a TJ Watt. I want to see what you can do against those elite pass rushers, because that's what you're going up against. And I said this on YouTube. I forgot what Steelers podcast I was listening to, but everyone was talking about how, Broderick Jones is doing a good job. No, he's not. We have to be honest here. Everyone shares a level of accountability with this decision, because you decided to draft somebody when you knew an offensive line coach that you couldn't really trust. But at the same time, we also must be honest here. We can't call Pat Meyer a really bad offensive line coach when Troy Fautanu was making strides, when Zach Frazier was making strides, when Mason McCormick was making strides, Dylan Cook is making strides. Everybody else on the offensive line is improving. But the only person that's not improving is who? Broderick Jones. Even when you look at their regular season, you're going up against New York. So most likely you're going to be going up against who? Jermaine Johnson probably? Okay, fine. Let's skip a few teams, okay? Minnesota. You're going up against a defensive line that has Gravedigger and Jonathan Allen and the pass rusher that they just drafted 2 years ago. Okay, let's keep on going. Cleveland, Myles Garrett twice. Indianapolis, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Latu. I can just keep on going if you want. Better yet, let's just keep on going. The Chargers, you're going up against Khalil Mack. Do you think you can beat him? I don't think so. Buffalo, you're going up against Gregory Rousseau. The same Gregory Rousseau that put belt to ass in that joint practice last year. Think you can do that? No. Detroit, you might be going up against Aiden Hutchinson. I don't think you can hold your own against Aiden Hutchinson. And this isn't me hating on Broderick Jones. This is me addressing the elephant in the room because nobody else has the balls to do it. If a person isn't playing well and they play a very important role in this team, and you invested a first-round pick, better yet, you traded up to draft him, and he hasn't panned out by now, that is on you, because you know what that means? That is another year that you have wasted a first-round pick. That is another year that you most likely are going to have to go in free agency or in the draft next year, and you're going to have to draft a replacement. That's what it means. I get it. Dan Moore was a little bit inconsistent. I understand he has his highs and his lows, but that's any player. But look, would you rather take Dan Moore now, or would you rather deal with Broderick Jones? You make the choice. But outside of everything else, the Steelers are pretenders. I do not expect them to go to the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game. I still do not trust Aaron Rodgers. And another thing that we need to talk about while we're talking about the Steelers, the fact that they are not letting their starters on offense at least play at least a few snaps just so they can build that chemistry and just have some tape on board just to look at is a crime. I understand Aaron Rodgers is Mr. I'm opposed to playing in the preseason because I'm above it. Well, guess what? Newsflash, old man. You need this more just as much as everybody else because that was the same problem that you had last year with your receivers. You had no chemistry with them. So what did the Jets have to do? They went and they traded for your guy in Devontae Adams. Let's call it for what it is, folks. This is about to be a load of bull. Everything is peaches and cream right now because the record is 0-0. I said this before in previous episodes, and I'm going to continue to say it. How is this team going to respond when Aaron Rodgers is in his feelings and this team is going on a losing streak? When this team isn't playing their best ball? When the receivers aren't playing best? How are they going to respond? How are the leaders in the locker room going to hold Aaron Rodgers accountable when he's going on these tirades? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. If he can throw Mike Williams and everybody else on that Jets team under the bus, we are not excluded. And this is something that Colin Cowherd said, and in some ways I had to look at it, and it sort of makes sense. The Steelers are a more organized version of the Jets. We drafted tackles, back-to-back drafts, receiver core, run game, defensive coach, defensive culture. That's all we are. But we beat on our chest and we say, oh, this is going to be a different year. This is different. We got a quarterback that's going to be able to attack the middle of the field. I haven't seen this offense attack anybody. All I've seen and all I've heard is this offense just being deplorable and just getting punched every single chance that it gets. If this offense is more productive without Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay being on the field, that is a problem. Because this offense is supposed to go toe-to-toe with that defense. That is the only way that you can know, hey, we're in a good spot. Hey, we're in a good direction. Things are on the up and up. This is something that we can live with. But if the offense is getting its teeth punched in every single practice, That's not good. So everyone needs to step up. Now that I'm done with my rant, let's just keep on going with other teams, okay? So dark horse playoff contenders. Broncos, Patriots, Panthers. Yes, the Panthers. Hear me out. The Panthers have made a lot of good moves this offseason. Granted, I understand I talked about it and I sort of grilled them a little bit with when I was talking about gut check time and everything. But when I really look at it, they made a lot of moves. I mean, what? You now have a receiving core that has Xavier Legette, Hunter Renfrow, Adam Thielen, and Tetsuo McMillan. Okay. You still have Chuba Hubbard. You have a pretty decent offensive line. They made a lot of moves for the defensive line and the defense as a whole. I think this team is in a really good spot. Not to mention the division is weak. So most likely you'll be the second or third best team in the division. Me personally, I would say second. Because I don't trust the Falcons, nor do I trust the Saints. And I believe the Saints are most likely tanking to get a high pick so that they can get their quarterback of the future. So I think the Panthers can do it. Bryce Young, coming off the bench last season, was putting on a show. I don't know if people realize that, but he was doing his thing. Now the Broncos. We have Bo Nix. You just locked up Cortland Sutton. You locked up your left tackle. You have J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. Like, the Broncos are going to be a sleeper. The Broncos will be the team that prevents the Chiefs from getting a top seed in the playoffs. I truly believe that. Because that defense can hold their own against the Chiefs. That offense showed a lot of grit last season. Bo Nix surprised a lot of people. Now, granted, I remember watching Bo Nix when he was in college and when he went up against Colorado. He was doing his thing there. And at first I was like, maybe he's a top first round pick. But then as the season progressed, he had his highs and lows. And I was like, is he really still a first round pick? But Sean Payton made the best decision in drafting Bo Nix. So I believe that they're a dark horse. Patriots, I think they're a dark horse too. Me personally, if that offensive line can actually play just at least a little bit better than what they did last year, I think they can do something. On top of that, you have Stephon Diggs, you have Mac Hollins, you have Javon Baker, you have Keyshawn Boutte, you have Kyren Williams. You have a lot on this offense. Then when you look at the defense, you got Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Keon White. You have Christian Gonzalez. You have Carlton Davis. You have a lot on this team. I think Mike Vrabel is going to really surprise a lot of people. I can make a strong case that right now, they will be the second best team in that division. They will be the team that will punch the Bills in the mouth this year. They will be the reason why the Bills are going to have to scratch and claw to get into the playoffs or to get a high seed in the playoffs. Now, when we look at it's not your turn contenders, Titans, you guys are still going through a rebuild. You guys got Cam Ward. He's still a rookie. I don't have high hopes for this team moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised if the coach is fired probably around maybe Thanksgiving or just after this season. Raiders, although you have Geno Smith, I still feel like you guys don't have enough to really say that you guys are there to like really compete. Now, granted, maybe in the regular season you can surprise some people, you know. But as far as being like legitimate contenders, I just don't see it. Dolphins, I want to give them a chance, but I just don't see it. I just feel like personally, they're just going to blow this thing up. I just feel like, you know, they've tried with Mike McDaniels and it just hasn't been super successful. Ever since that game where they almost broke the record for scoring the most points in a single game, they have been playing well. When they went up against the Chiefs in the cold, they folded. That's not a good sign, folks. They can beat up on all the other teams, the teams that nobody cares about, but when they go up against true competition, guess what happens? They fold. It's the same thing with the Steelers. It's the same thing with the Steelers. The Steelers can beat the Dolphins, the Jaguars, Panthers, Falcons, all those weaker teams. But when they go up against true competition, when they go up against the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, guess what happens? Folded like a lawn chair. Cowboys, I don't see it. Your defense doesn't have enough to say, hey, they don't have anything on the defense that you can say, hey, they might be a problem this year. Especially with the whole Micah Parsons situation. Oh, no. If Micah Parsons is really serious and he misses some game checks, this defense isn't going to go anywhere. I'm just going to be completely honest here. There is nobody else on this defensive line that makes you say, ooh, they still going to be a problem. And then the offense, granted, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens, you have Dak Prescott. Okay, cool. I still feel like that's not enough. Their left tackle position is a question mark because you're bringing Leo Collins. I just don't see with the Cowboys this year. I think personally, Brian Schottenheimer is just a holdover for a coach that they really want to get next year personally, but I can be wrong. Giants, same thing. I don't believe they have enough on offense to legitimately say that, hey, we can make some noise. I mean, sure, you're going to have Russell Wilson, but how well is Russell Wilson going to be playing? Because we all saw how he was last season, and he had his highs, he has his lows. His lows were really low, but his highs were, pretty up there. Jaguars, sure, this is the first year with Liam Cohen. I want to give them a chance. I just don't trust Trevor Lawrence at this point. I'll continue to say this. I don't believe Trevor Lawrence is an elite quarterback. I feel like he was overpaid, and I don't see it. I'm just going to be completely honest. When you look at their division as a whole, they can't go toe-to-toe with the Texans or the Colts. Sure, they can maybe do a little bit of something with the Titans, but I mean, it's the Titans. Need not say more? The Saints, you're going through a rebuild. End of discussion. Okay? Falcons, I want to give them a chance, but I still feel like they're not ready yet. I still feel like they still need at least maybe one or two more really good drafts. Sure, they try to bolster up the defensive line this past draft because they want to be able to go after the quarterback. That's fine. But when you look at everything else, I still feel like there's some question marks for the offensive weapons. And I just feel like they can't really go toe-to-toe with the Buccaneers, nor the Panthers. I feel like right now the Panthers could easily beat the Falcons. Am I wrong? If I am, let me know in the comments. Bears, at best, they are probably the third or fourth best team in their division. You can't go to toe with the Lions or the Vikings or the Packers. Granted, you drafted Luther Burden. You bolster up that offensive line. You brought in, I think, another tight end, if I'm not mistaken. You've made a lot of moves offensively. You brought in Ben Johnson as the head coach. Have a lot of high hopes for them. But let's be real here. I don't see it. Can they prove me wrong? Sure. I think at best this is probably a 5 to 7 win team. At best. And that's me being generous. Browns, you're rebuilding. Okay, you guys aren't going anywhere. Sure, you can be a nuisance to your division rivals, but I don't expect you to make it to the playoffs. I don't expect you to win a playoff game. I don't expect you to really do anything this season. Cardinals, I have my hopes for them, but I just don't feel like it's your turn this year. Maybe you guys are missing out a few different positions, but I just feel like they're missing something. I don't know what it is, but they're missing something. They have the weapons on both sides of the ball, but their division is going to be a little bit competitive this year. The 49ers are going to try to put their best foot forward this year. Colts, this all depends on quarterback play. And me personally, I would venture to say Daniel Jones is probably going to be the starting quarterback this year. I feel like Anthony Richardson lost his job last night. But that's going to be a separate topic that we'll probably have to talk about in another episode. Jets, again, quarterback play. I just feel like Justin Fields is too inconsistent with his quarterback play that it's really going to affect the Jets. Granted, you have a really good defense, but if your quarterback isn't at least playing average to above average, then we have a problem. I just don't trust this Jets offense right now. Justin Fields, sure, he has all the potential in the world, but I want to see if he can put it all together. Do I think he can do it? Yes. But I think right now in that division, I mean, the Patriots, they're going to give you some problems. The Dolphins, they may try to, put up a little bit of a fight. But, I mean, if you're the Jets, you have to set your expectations fairly low this year. I feel like maybe give it one more draft, depending on what they do. Then we can maybe have a conversation. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you are listening, please make sure you guys download the episodes. Leave a review on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, okay? We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we are there. Okay? Now, if you go on rss.com/Football Junkies podcast, when you click on listen on, there's going to be a whole bunch of links to different places that you can listen to us on, all right? Now, for our YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. When you go on our YouTube page, Football Junkies Pod, I'm going to say it again, there is a link tree. When you click on that link tree, it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content, as well as our RSS affiliate link. When you sign up with our RSS affiliate link, we will be able to receive a commission for it. All commissions will go back to the Football Junkies podcast, whether it means we upgrade the equipment, we get more analytical data by signing up for like PFF or, reception perception, or, better computers, just so we can give out a better product for you guys, okay? Now, for my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, all right? Football Junkies Pod. There's a lot of clips I need to work on. Once I'm done with this episode, we will be working on those clips so we can give it out to you guys, all right? Now, for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, all right? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. Football_Junkies Pod, all right? You can follow me on X, GMKale, all right? GMKAILE. And it's the same thing with Blue Sky, GMKale, KAILE, all right? As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you guys are watching some preseason games tonight, all right? Shador's going to be playing tonight. I'm going to be watching that game. And we'll probably talk about that game as well. And we might actually talk about that game, the Steelers game, possibly the Ravens game. There's going to be a few games that we're going to be talking about, all right? So, as always, this is your GM Kale signing out. Peace and love. Later.